In ye old days, I thought plants were hecka boring, that I would never be into them, that I would never study them. Boy, was I wrong. Little did I realize I would end up here. So I come to you now with years of taking care of plants, propagating plants, fighting mold for over a fucking year, battling with gnats, trying to grow pretty much every single houseplant. I now bring to you the tips that you will need in starting your journey, and definitely the tips that I needed starting mine. I've learned that the easiest approach, and the approach that I definitely take to plant gardening, is that it should be something that fits into your existing lifestyle. It shouldn't require you to like change your entire life and rearrange your room and get a humidifier and buy all of these things. Like, gardening is supposed to be chill. If you want to get like crazy with it later, that comes later, but this is a beginner's video. If a plant is going to be able to get as much light as in the corner of this room right now, that is all it's going to get, and I'm just going to pick a plant that works well for there and that works well with my life. Because here's the thing, if a plant doesn't survive my lifestyle, it's probably going to end up like slowly dying. Yeah, because if you only want to water once a week like I do, then a peace lily that is super thirsty is probably not your option. Let's figure out your gardening style and pick out some plants that are best for you, because that way you won't have to waste all of your money. Hey, I'm Niba, and these are my easy tips for someone starting out in gardening. For more stories about nature, you can check out my socials. I'm at NotesByNiba on all platforms, and for now you can like, comment, and subscribe to this video. And if you want to really support me in sharing stories about nature and science and our lovely green friends, you can check out my Ko-fi. Link is in the description below. Enough rambling, let's turn the page. So like I said, the number one thing really is just lifestyle. I feel like it's really common nowadays to just go out there, buy a shit ton of plants, bring them home, and then just sort of like watch them die over the next few weeks. It only takes like whatever the length of this video is to save yourself a bunch of hassle. Nice. Any plant can be easy if you're willing to research their needs. Then the more important thing is figure out what are your needs. Do you want plants that are like long and drapey like this guy or like this guy? Do you want plants that are able to take like a lot of water because you love watering your plants? Like, what do you want in your plants? The amazing thing about plants is that truly there is every kind of plant for every kind of person. Like, when you're starting out, plants really should be like a low stress thing. If you find yourself getting overwhelmed by all the stuff going on, why do it then? Don't use plain water. So everyone knows you gotta water your plants, but my tip to you is that you should always give your plants special water. And I don't just mean fertilizer and distilled water, although that is also preferable too. You're already spending whatever amount of time to like go around and give everyone water. You may as well give them something little bonus extra as well. So you have three options here. Number one is that if you notice there's a lot of bugs around your place, you're probably gonna wanna have some kind of like anti-mosquito, anti-fungus gnat type of thing dissolved in your water. You can just keep on giving them this like anti-bug water pretty much all the time, and you don't have to like remake it every time you want to make water. Number two is if you're in like a humid area or you notice that like mold grows on things within like 2 to 3 days, you want to use this fungicide over here. Trust me, it will save you so much effort. And yes, it is fucking worth the extra like 3 to 5 minutes. It is always better to pre-treat your plants. It's kind of like giving them a temporary vaccination. Pretty much everyone who's had plants has had to deal with one of these two problems, and there is absolutely like nothing bad about giving your plants this water with this extra stuff in it. I really wish someone had told me this advice, because I waited until the problem was really bad, and then I had to fight the mold for a whole year. Lovely. And you're going to be so happy that you've established this habit when you just started out, rather than like a couple months in or a year in or whatever in, and you've got mold all over the place and flies buzzing around everywhere. The nice thing about this is you can mix all this into your bathtub, because these items can be safely emptied into a household sewage system, and both of them are 100% biodegradable when they're properly disposed. We're going to get to like how to water and stuff in a second. Now you have your special water, but we actually first need plants to water. So let's get to plants. Starter plants. So I strongly recommend that you start with plants that need very little care. My favorite are snake plants, which are like these guys. Nothing almost fell over. But they come in so many different varieties. They can also look like this. Please pardon the soil on the edge, I just repotted him. And they can also look like this. Oh shit, he's putting out a little baby. Nice. A lot of people will say to start off with succulents, but actually I don't think succulents are very easy. I actually think you should avoid them because they need so much light, but also like too much light is too much for them. And they also need like just the right amount of water. It just like, you know, snake plants can tolerate like a big variety of conditions, and succulents still kind of narrower. You might think that air plants would be pretty easy because they don't need any soil, but those are also pretty complicated. They need like the right levels of humidity and ways to get nutrients from the air. Pothoses are pretty great if you are able to water like at least once a week, but I still think snake plants are the best. But what if at this point you're like, oh, but wait, I have this other plant that I really want and I don't know what it needs? Fear not, my dude. If you're at a garden center, there's probably a plant nerd nearby that is more than happy to help you. Alternatively, you can also use a plant identification app to see what kind of plant you're looking at that you really want to get, and that way be able to tell like what does it need. I really like Google Lens because not only does it help you identify plants, but it also helps with like translations and matching furniture in real life to where to buy it online, just all sorts of stuff. And then you'll find a lot of websites that like tell you about its needs. How to give them a good home. So now you have your plant. Chances are they're probably going to need like a bigger home. Sometimes you'll get plants from those centers that they've been put into like a tiny pot. They outgrew that pot, and then instead of like taking that tiny pot off, they'll just take the whole thing and put it into another like pot. Really bad for their roots. So you want to try and like get it out as soon as you can. Check for like what's going on down there. And so here's where we get into the different mediums for plants. You can grow them in water, like hydroponics. You can grow them in leca, and I'll get into that later. You can also just choose to do like a different soil mix per plant and make it like perfectly adapted to their needs and stuff. I personally find that to be a lot of work, like straight up. So what I do is I just make a generic general plant mixture. So here is my recipe for how to do like a very general plant mixture, and all the links for anything you'll need are in the description as well. If you tend to overwater your plants a little bit too much, I would suggest adding a little bit more of the coconut core. I don't know how to actually pronounce that. I would suggest adding a little bit more of that and the perlite. For me, I like making soil that drains pretty well. I'm pretty terrified of root rot, which is when the roots have been like sitting in too much moisture, and then you have to like go in there and clean them up and like snip off the extra roots and put them in like a hydrogen peroxide mixture. It's so much effort. I would rather have my plants be like slightly on the thirsty side than have to deal with that. Depending on your plant, you could probably also just grow it in water. Like pothos tends to be pretty happy just growing in water. This is my hydroponic station. I mostly use it to propagate plants and get more plants from the plants I already have. I also have a link to this cute little test tube situation in the description, but you can use jars or cups or anything your heart desires. You can also use a medium called leca, which stands for lightweight expanded clay aggregate. And I really recommend this video by my mentor Halise. In short, it gives you really great drainage, really good aeration, and you can reuse them, which is pretty cool. And I think the coolest thing about it is that it's inorganic, so you actually will not have very many pest problems. On the downside though, it is a pretty big like upfront cost, and you do have to like fertilize your plants because there's no actual like nutrients in the leca. For me personally, the biggest problem I had with these is I had so much algae like growing on the surface of the leca, and that messes with the plants, and it attracts pests and causes diseases, and it smells bad, and it just takes a lot of extra work to keep the algae away. But who knows, maybe you won't have that problem and it could be perfect for you. Although honestly, now that I've had to fight like a mold problem on my soil for over a year, I kind of wonder if I should revisit my opinions on leca and maybe switch to it. So stay tuned. Maybe I will be making some leca videos in the future. Feeding schedules. One of the biggest questions I see from new plant parents is how much should I water? Really, you should think of your plant kind of like a car. You know, if you drive your car a lot, if it goes a lot of places, it's going to need a lot of gas. For plants, it's kind of a similar story. Is your plant like in a very sunny spot? Is your plant like putting out a lot of leaves? Is it like springtime? If your plant is in like a lower light environment and it's very cold, like maybe it's winter, it's going to need a little bit less. Some people even say to just throw a watering schedule out the window because you'll just kill all your plants doing that. In general though, plants need to be watered once the entire like pot is super dry. So if you can look over at it at the top of the soil and it looks moist, you probably don't need to water it. If you want to water your plants like every single day, choose plants that are going to enjoy it and pick pots that are like made of terracotta, which is this sort of clay brown thing. For me though, we figured out my lifestyle. I enjoy watering my plants all at once on one day. If I look at a plant and the top still looks pretty moist, or it just looks like it doesn't need water, then I skip it for that whole week and it's going to go 2 weeks without having water. If that kills it, it kills it. My lifestyle is more important. Maybe some of the plant people will come at me for saying stuff like that, but planting and gardening is supposed to be a chill, fun thing. So for my chill Sundays, I usually will like go to a dance class, Pilates, yoga, or whatever, and then I come home and shower. And this part is important here. When I've rinsed off my soap, I will close the bottom of the tub so that way whatever water is coming out is just gonna like stay in the tub. And then I like close my eyes, have a little like existential crisis moment, and then I stop the water and get out. And so at this point, the tub probably has like a little bit of water in it. Sometimes I need to fill it even more. Sometimes I need to empty it out, depending on how long my like, you know, little existential crisis moment is going. But essentially I want that bottom layer of water to be about like an inch or 4 centimeters. And then I'll pour in the ingredients for my special water potion. So that can be like the fungicide, the mosquito treatment, like whatever it is that you're using. And then put all your plants in there and let them drink from the bottom. This part is so important. Because if you feed them from the bottom, the plant will naturally absorb water until it is like at its full. It's sort of like the difference between shoving food down its face versus like letting it choose how much to drink up. If you go around like watering from the top, it's not like the worst thing, but the problem is that it leaves that like surface top area really damp, which is what leads to mold. The other thing too is that if you water from the top, the soil over the time will just get more and more compact and like really solidified, and then the water won't be able to penetrate like all the way down. So when you bottom water, there's more like looser, more aerated soil, which is really what the plants want. A peeable home. And so on that note, the next thing is that you really want to make sure your plant is able to pee, or like the water can drain out of it properly. So good drainage is really just a combination of that really good soil mix that I was telling you about, and also the type of pot that you use. Super important to prevent like root rot and a whole bunch of other issues like mold and stuff like that. I feel like I keep talking about mold and the fungus gnats, but truly like any plant parent who's been through either of these problems will tell you it is the bane of your existence. You don't want to deal with it. Please do the prevention. It only takes 2 seconds. Okay, maybe like 3 minutes, but you get my point. Always check that your pots have drainage holes. This one has a whole bunch of holes. That's very good. And you want to avoid letting your plants sit in too much water. If your plant doesn't have any drainage holes, what you can do is take a ceramic drill bit and then just drill in a hole into whatever pot you want to use. And then, like I said, the pot material matters. This stuff is a terracotta pot, and it's totally unglazed, so it tends to dry out quickly because there's actually a whole bunch of holes in here, and so all the water come out of here. So this area down here is very wet, which is why it's a different color than up here. This guy has a glaze on it, which you can tell because it's very shiny, and it's got that like clay. You can tell by like that sound and how heavy, and it has like a color to it. And then a pot like this one, even though it looks like terracotta, it's just plastic. So both the plastic pots and the glazed pots will both be able to retain the moisture for longer. So you'll want to like make sure you're matching the plants to the pots as best as you can. So for example, a plant that really likes being watered, like this guy for instance, he's totally happy to chill in a plastic pot. But a plant that does better with a little bit less water, I would probably try and aim for a terracotta pot. There's a lot to be said for aesthetics. I wish I had stuck to like one single color or one single vibe for these pots, because right now I have like 4 different colors and it feels a little chaotic, and sometimes I get a little insecure when I see other plant parents and they've got like, I don't know, just like really aesthetic rooms, and maybe one day I'll get their mopping plants. This next one's pretty easy, but I find that a lot of people kind of just forget about it, especially if they've been a plant parent for like a couple months or a year. So essentially wipe down the leaves of your plants regularly, because dust can block the sunlight from actually hitting the plant and stops their ability to photosynthesize. It also clogs up their stomata, which are kind of like their pores. Their stomata are really helpful for gas exchange. They do kind of like a two-way fart with the carbon dioxide and the oxygen. So keeping them clean helps them stay healthy and be their best, and also look their best. Shame. My last tip for you is to just not shame yourself if a plant dies. It happens to everyone. Killing plants sucks, but it's also learning. What could you have done differently? Is this a plant that's maybe not suited for your lifestyle? I learned that I killed every single calathea that came my way, and I kept buying them because I was like, oh, it's so pretty, it's so gorgeous, but they are just such needy freaking plants. I've just decided I'm not the type of person who can keep them alive, so it's just not worth it. I probably don't need to tell you all the health benefits, the visual benefits, the aesthetic, etc. that comes from owning plants, but I can tell you it is definitely worth it, even with the battling of the mold for the last year. Figure out what works for you, and then go out there, look at all the amazing plants that exist, and find the one that will fit your lifestyle. If you enjoyed this video or you're interested in hearing more stories of plants, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you didn't, then please tell me why, and I'll see you on the next page. I love that homeostasis is just like puttering around back there. Nice, Momo.